Welcome back to Horror Movies.
Today, I will be showing you an Italian zombie horror and thriller film from 2017 titled, The End. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins with a businessman, Claudio Verona, who is outside waiting for his car to meet a client. The day has just started and things are already going wrong for Claudio. The car that picks him up every day is late, and his normal driver has been replaced by a young man named Riccardo. The traffic is also worse than usual, but Claudio blames this on Riccardo. When Riccardo turns on the radio, he hears about riots in various parts of Rome, where small groups of thugs reportedly agreed to strike at the same time, but there hasn't been any official word from the police. Claudio, who is trying to review some notes for an upcoming meeting, gets irritated by the radio sound and demands that Riccardo turn it off. When Riccardo asks him to help him get into the economics industry, he becomes even more irritated, but fortunately, his phone rings and interrupts their conversation. It's his secretary, Sarah, who is called to ask what she should do with the client who is waiting for him. Claudio instructs her to prepare breakfast for him and to keep him there till he arrives. When he eventually arrives at the workplace, he is greeted by another secretary, Sylvia, who has a coffee and a reminder of his golf game. As she is still a trainee, Claudio advises her to request a meeting with Sarah so she can join his team. He then hurries into the elevator to meet his coworker Marta, who refuses to give him a kiss when he requests one. Marta warns Claudio that their affair is finished and that she is about to get married. Claudio, unable to bear rejection, stops the elevator and slams Marta against the wall, stating he misses the old days and refuses to let go of her as she tries to flee. Finally, Marta is able to free herself by suddenly grabbing Claudio's groin. Marta then leaves as Claudio remains inside the elevator with very less concern on his face. A few minutes later, Claudio receives a call from his wife Lorena, who informs him about the riots that have become even worse and there are now blocked streets. The elevator gets stopped in the middle of their conversation, but Claudio seems unconcerned. Later, Claudio gets furious at his wife when she tries to get him to buy milk after work even though he's having a rather busy day. Claudio hits the emergency button and calls the maintenance technician explaining that he's stuck. The technician examines the system and informs him that there is an issue with the power unit on the roof, which he will investigate. While he waits, Claudio contacts Sarah to remind her that she must do everything she can to keep their client from leaving. While he lights a cigarette, Claudio hears some noises outside and attempts to call for help, but he is ignored. Claudio becomes increasingly irritated and contacts maintenance again. But the technician informs him that he has lost communication with his roof crew and provides him their phone number so he may contact them directly. When Claudio calls them, the technician on the roof says that they aren't sure what the problem is yet, which frustrates Claudio even more. The call is then abruptly cut short when the technician sees something that causes them to freak out and run. Claudio hits the emergency button once more to demand answers, and the technician in charge finally agrees to go to the roof personally to see what's going on. After waiting for a while, Claudio decides to take matters into his own hands. He removes his jacket and uses all his strength to open the first door of the elevator. The second door, on the other hand, becomes stuck, and he is only able to get his head through it. Claudio can see inside the offices because the elevator has stopped just before reaching the 7th floor. He tries to climb through the door gap, but it is too narrow for him to pass through. Claudio decides to wait once again and receives a call from Lorena shortly after. Lorena seems worried because someone is pounding on the door loudly but no one answers. Claudio advises locking herself in the bedroom while he calls a mutual friend Stefano, and asks him to go check on her. Stefano agrees to do this favor for Claudio but warns him that he might be late due to the bad traffic. Once again, Claudio calls Lorena to inform her Stefano is on his way. But now Lorena is even more worried because the news shows violence spreading in the streets. Claudio tries to calm her down and tells her to wait for Stefano before hanging up. A few moments later, he looks at the news headlines on his phone and finds that they all mention the bizarre attacks and stopped roads in Rome, as well as a lab on fire that was recently evacuated. He's about to light another cigarette when he's startled by cries for rescue. Marta, who falls to the floor immediately in front of him, is among a frightened group of people that rush past the elevator. Claudio tries to hold Martha, but whatever is on the other side of the elevator doors is stronger than him and draws her away. Claudio finally takes the matter seriously and takes a step back as terror fills his head. Shortly after, as Claudio approaches the door once more to take a peek, he is confronted by two zombies attempting to reach inside to catch him. Claudio quickly takes another step back until his back hits the wall. The two zombies vanish as quickly as they appeared after they hear a voice from down the hall. Next, He gets a call from Stefano telling him he's nearly at his house. Claudio tries to explain what's going on to Stefano, but he doesn't understand what he's saying. The call soon ends when he's attacked by zombies on the streets. Claudio is then contacted by the technician. Claudio tries to explain the situation to this man, but he doesn't understand him either. The contact is cut short once more when the zombies attack and kill the technician. Claudio phones Lorena and Sarah after crying in despair, but neither of them answers. Sarah calls back a few moments later, but suddenly a zombie grabs Claudio by the neck. He manages to free himself after some struggle and beat up the zombie's head using the handrail until it dies. Later, Claudio notices zombie blood is spreading on the elevator floor, so he covers it with paperwork from his bag in the hopes of preventing it from spreading further. After a while, Claudio grabs the railing to defend himself when he hears a noise, but it turns out it's just Sylvia. He calls her and asks for help to open the elevator door. Unfortunately, two individuals aren't enough to succeed, and things get much worse when Claudio's handrail slips and makes a loud noise. Sylvia attempts to enter the elevator as they hear zombies approaching, but later she runs away. After she goes, one of them arrives and tries to get Claudio, but Sylvia returns and beats it to death with a golf club she found nearby. They laugh at Sylvia's feat when suddenly she gets attacked by zombies, leading her to death. Next, Claudio checks his phone and it appears that the army has been mobilized at last. He tries to call his wife Lorena, but she doesn't pick up. After several tries, Lorena finally picks up the phone. But their conversation is cut short when zombies track her down and attack her. Soon, Claudio is discovered by another coworker who has been surviving by using a lamp to defend himself. Claudio explains that entering the elevator is impossible, but the man persists in trying. His attempts make so much noise that the zombies track him down and chase him away. After being frustrated by his situation, Claudio intentionally calls a zombie over and mocks it for not being able to reach him. He gets even more delighted when a swarm of zombies joins outside the elevator. He grabs the railing and begins to beat them up, only to be distracted by a scream from down the hall. It's his secretary, Sarah. When she requests his assistance, the zombies become aware of her and chase her into an office. Claudio throws his watch at them, pleading with them to save her, but it's useless. Claudio starts going through his phone once again and comes up with a video of a reporter who is explaining the zombie situation in her live stream. She advises viewers not to try to reason with the zombies and instead to flee the city before the zombies attack her. Claudio is having a cigarette while watching the zombies when he hears gunfire outside the door. Claudio uses the opportunity to shout for help, attracting the attention of an armed police officer named Marcello. Marcello reveals he's alone and has lost touch with headquarters. After failing to open the door, Marcello decides to try to fix the generator. So he offers Claudio a walkie-talkie to lead him around the facility and a gun to defend himself before leaving. Claudio tries to light another cigarette but fails and unintentionally contacts Marcello through the walkie-talkie. Marcello advises him to only call when necessary and pauses the conversation to kill a group of zombies approaching him. Marcello then informs him that the stairs to floor 9 are blocked. Claudio thinks for a minute and advises Marcello to use the scaffolding on that floor to reach the roof. Marcello has no choice but to shoot a window to access the scaffolding. Some zombies are drawn to the noise, but Marcello manages to remain undiscovered by remaining silent. Marcello climbs the roof and restarts the generators. The lights in the elevators have been turned back on, but the doors will not close. Claudio uses his phone flashlight to search between the doors and discovers the misplaced piece that is preventing them from closing. He attempts unsuccessfully to reach it with his hand but is soon interrupted by a zombie arriving at the door gap. Claudio takes a step back and uses the gun left by Marcello to kill the zombie. After that, more zombies appear and Claudio hesitates to take action. But after a little encouragement from Marcello, he shoots every single zombie at the door. Claudio is in shock, feeling bad for killing people, especially considering they were his colleagues and he knew their families. Marcello corrects him that they are zombies, and Claudio had no choice but to do what he had to do. Claudio's thoughts are interrupted when he hears zombie noises through the walkie-talkie and loses communication with Marcello. At this point, Claudio considers committing suicide as he cannot take it any longer. Moments later, he sees a couple of cops at the end of the hallway running away from zombies and cries for help. But they depart before they can see or hear him. As night falls, hopelessness takes hold of Claudio's head, and he places the gun on his temple. But soon he is interrupted by a swarm of zombies attempting to enter the elevator. Soon, he hears Marcello's voice from the ceiling, asking him to open the hatch and let him in. Claudio takes hold of the handrail and pushes the hatch open, allowing Marcello to pass through. As soon as he lands, Marcelo wastes no time and shoots at every zombie who approaches the door. After that, he checks the locked door before sitting next to Claudio on the floor, showing the zombie-inflicted wound on his leg. Claudio asks Marcelo if he has any idea how this started, as he is a cop. But Marcelo replies that all they were told was that a virus had been pawned and was spreading. Marcelo suspects that someone must have generated the virus in a lab and then lost control of it. Suddenly Marcelo bursts out laughing after remembering a joke he heard in a movie he and his wife had just watched. The two of them then start conversing about their married lives, and Claudio concludes that he isn't a good person. Next, we see Marcelo start coughing blood as he realizes that he'll soon turn into a zombie. So he asks Claudio to shoot twice in his head while he is sleeping. After Claudio refuses to do so, Marcelo decides to do it himself. Claudio grabs the gun and attempts to stop him, so the two men struggle for a while over the gun before Marcelo hits Claudio in the face and convinces him to let go. A few hours later, Marcelo falls asleep, but Claudio still can't bring himself to shoot him. But when Marcelo wakes up after changing into a zombie, he changes his mind. Finally, Claudio shoots Marcelo to kill him when he attempts to attack him. Soon Claudio notices that his leg has also been injured, so he wraps his tie around it to keep the infection from spreading. Hearing gunshots, zombies come rushing towards the elevator to attack Claudio. Claudio uses Marcelo's rifle to shoot at them. Each shot pulls his body back until it collides with the wall, and the final shot smashes him in the head, knocking him out. He awakens up a few moments later as he hears conversations and gunfire in the corridor. Claudio cannot see anybody in sight except for dead bodies when suddenly his phone starts ringing. But it's simply the 7 a.m. alarm. Claudio turns off the phone, but it rings again, this time with a real call. Claudio is overjoyed when he hears Lorena's voice, who is alive and well after being rescued by the military. Claudio's phone call ends abruptly as his battery dies, yet this is enough to motivate him to try to flee once more. He takes the handrail and tries to push the elevator piece that's obstructing the doors open with his hand, but he can't reach it. So he uses Marcelo's body to stand on it and reach in between the doors with his hand. He manages to grab the piece and remove it, allowing him to fully open the door and increase the gap. Claudio finally climbs out of the elevator steps over some zombie bodies to reach the corridor. When he finally makes it into the lobby, he discovers more bodies, including a legless zombie that tries to grab him. Claudio presses the trigger on the gun, but there are no bullets left. He then uses his foot to crush the zombie's head. As Claudio exits the building and goes through the streets of Rome, he notices that there is no life around him, only zombie bodies. He sees a bottle of milk on the ground next to a woman at the bridge and picks it up, leading the woman to wake up and grab his leg. Claudio takes a step back and prepares to defend himself with the bottle, but the zombie is killed by a military bullet fired from a neighboring roof. Claudio notices them and hurriedly lifts his arms to inform them that he is fine, hoping that they will let him into the refugee shelters. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.